So here's my process for making sourdough bread. And you can see I'm starting there with an active sourdough starter. And there's lots of places online to figure out how to make that. I might post a short video just on how I feed mine and keep it active. But before I bake, I make a special mix of sourdough starter and flour that really kind of supercharges the yeast production. So I know it's ready to work through a whole loaf of bread. So you can see I'm starting with 15 grams of my regular starter, and to that I'll be adding 30 grams of warm water. I'll just zero the scale out so you can see that. And then there'll be 30 grams as well of flour. So I will speed this up. You'll see that I stir the water and the starter together first before adding the flour, and get all the flour in there. Stir that up really well, and that's going to sit overnight in a warm place covered. So there's the sourdough starter the next morning. You can see it's bubbling and active, and we're going to put in 50 grams of that. So we will just jump ahead to 50 grams. So we'll zero out the scale again, and we'll add 350 grams of warm water, and then 10 grams of salt. I like to use salt that doesn't have any iodine in it. Give that a good mix so that it doesn't quite get integrated into the water, but it'll mix through the flour better that way. And then you're going to add, I put 525 grams of strong bread flour, but you should play with that based on your starter and temperature of your kitchen. It can go anywhere from 500 to 550, but I find 525 is about right for me. And then you're just going to bring it together into what people often describe as just a shaggy dough ball. You're not going to be able to make this smooth yet. That will happen a little bit later. I'll speed up the video here so you don't have to watch me mixing and mixing. But eventually it all comes together. You get all of the flour integrated, and you kind of get that shaggy mess like that. And that's going to sit there for an hour before you touch it again. So that's been in a warm spot, covered with a damp cloth for an hour. It kind of looks like it's come together a little bit more, and what you're going to do is the stretch and fold. So put cold water on your hand, just dig up as much of that as you can from straight in front of you, pull it up and stretch it over, and then you spin it 90 degrees. And again, you reach and get all of that dough under there. It's very sticky, so if you don't use the water, your hands are just going to stick to the dough. Stretch and fold, and you're going to do 2 more of those. So turning 90 degrees, turning 90 degrees, turning 90 degrees, and once more. And this is starting to bring the dough together, and it's also starting to develop the glutens that give structure to your bread. So that's the first stretch fold. I do it after an hour, and then in a half an hour, I'm going to do 1 more. You can see kind of bring it together and fold it into starting to look like a loaf of bread now. So half an hour's gone by, and it doesn't look like much has happened. It never does look like much has happened. But we're just going to do the exact same stretch fold method. And once we've done that, we're going to let it do its bulk rise, which in my kitchen takes about 6 hours. You want it to add about 50% of its volume. So it hasn't doubled in size, but it's 1.5 times bigger. So I actually let this go for about 7 hours this time, and you can see it's about 50% bigger than what it was. And then the idea is to get it out of there. You can see the bubbles that are forming there. That shows that it's working well. So you want to get it out onto a surface that doesn't have a lot of flour on it. And the idea here is to form the shape of your loaf, and you're going to try to create surface tension by pulling the loaf towards you, pulling the loaf towards you. I just keep going back and forth, and I can actually feel the dough getting, or the surface of the dough getting tension on it, and that helps with the structure of the loaf as it's baking. So I do this until I feel like I've got a nice tight ball of dough. And so that's going to go in this Dutch oven. You can see I have it lined with parchment paper with some flour on the bottom. And I then let it sit there and do one more rise for an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. Um, and you'll see what it looks like just before I bake it. You can see here, this has been 2 hours rising. It has increased in size, maybe by 50%. And before you bake it, you need to slice the top just to let some of the air or the gases escape during the cooking time. So I usually just put one slice. Some people do some really fancy stuff. I do this. Um, and that's going to go in an oven with the lid on at 450 Fahrenheit, which I think is about 230 Celsius, for 20 minutes. And then we're going to take the top off and leave it for another 25 minutes, and it should be then done by then. So I have dumped this carefully out of the Dutch oven onto this pizza rack, and I'll just pull the parchment off and flip it over so you can take a look. So there's my sourdough. It's still quite warm. I let it cool down before I ever try to slice it. But it's a bit of a process, but once you've done it a couple of times, it's a fairly easy thing to do. So enjoy.